When my mother looked at me and asked, "Have we met before?" I smiled, not because it didn't hurt. It did. It felt like someone had taken a lifetime of memories and erased them in front of me. But I smiled because my mother had spent my entire life teaching me something: when someone you love is lost, you don't make them feel lost, so I held out my hand. "My name is Emma." She looked at my hand, then at my face. For a moment I saw something, a tiny flicker, like a candle trying to stay lit in the wind. Then it disappeared. She gently took my hand. Her fingers wrapped around mine. Warm, soft, familiar. Those were the same hands that held me when I was sick, the same hands that fixed my hair before school. The same hands that wiped my tears after my first heartbreak. The same hands that once held my face and told me, "Emma, the world can be difficult sometimes, but you don't have to face it alone." Now those same hands were holding mine like I was a stranger. "It's nice to meet you, Emma," she said. I forced a smile. "It's nice to meet you too, Mom." But she didn't react. She didn't know that word belonged to her. People think losing someone happens only once. They think it happens when someone takes their final breath. But that's not always true. Sometimes, you lose someone while they are still alive. A little at a time, a forgotten conversation, a missing word, a familiar face that suddenly becomes unfamiliar, a story they once told perfectly, now ending halfway through. That's how Alzheimer's took pieces of my mother. Quietly, slowly, almost politely. For a long time I believed Alzheimer's stole my mother. I was wrong. It stole her memories, not her love. There was a difference I would only understand after it was too late, before my mother became a patient, before doctors used words like progression and decline. Before our lives became appointments and medication schedules, she was simply Mom, and everyone who knew her loved her, not because she was perfect, because she made people feel seen. My mother had this strange habit. Whenever someone left our house, she never said, "Drive safely." She never said, "Be careful." Instead, she always said, "Come home with a story." When I was young, I thought it was just something funny she said. Years later, I realized what she meant. Life was not measured by how many days passed. It was measured by the moments worth remembering. And my mother collected moments like they were treasures. When I was 12 years old, I came home from school trying not to cry. Someone had laughed at my lunch. It was nothing serious, just a stupid comment, but when you're 12, small things can feel like the end of the world. I walked straight to the kitchen. I opened my lunchbox, and underneath the empty container, I found a folded piece of paper. I opened it. Only one sentence was written. "In case nobody tells you today, I'm proud of you." I looked at my mother. She was pretending not to watch me. "Mom," she turned around. "Yes, did you put this here?" She smiled. "Maybe." "Why?" She shrugged. "Because sometimes people need to hear something before they realize they need to hear it." I kept that note. I still have it. The paper is worn now. The edges are soft, but some things survive because they are loved enough. My mother wrote everything down: recipes, shopping lists, funny things I said. Family memories. At the time, we joked about it. My father used to say, "Your mother writes things down because she thinks her brain is going to quit one day." She would laugh. "Maybe it will," then she would tap his shoulder. "So I'm giving it backup files." Everyone laughed. Nobody knew how important those backup files would become. The first signs were small. Almost too small to notice. She forgot where she put her keys, then she forgot appointments. Then she started asking the same questions twice. We joked about it, she joked about it. I guess my brain is getting old before the rest of me. But one evening, I found her standing in the kitchen. The refrigerator door was open. She was staring inside. "Mom," she looked at me. And smiled. "Oh, what are you doing?" She looked confused. She paused. "I don't remember why I came here." I laughed gently. "Maybe you were looking for food." She smiled. "That sounds like something I would do." We both laughed, but later that night, I saw her sitting alone at the table, looking at old photographs, not smiling, just staring. A few months later, things became harder. She forgot a recipe she had made hundreds of times. She forgot the name of a neighbor she had known for 20 years. Then one day, she forgot the ending of my favorite childhood story, the rabbit story, the one she had read to me every night when I was little. She stopped halfway through. Her finger froze on the page. "The rabbit," she looked at me. "What happens next?" My heart sank, because my mother knew that story better than anyone. I smiled. "He saves the bird." Her face relaxed. Right? Then she laughed softly. I was testing you. I laughed too, but inside, I knew she wasn't testing me. She was trying to protect me. The day we went to the doctor. My mother wore her blue sweater, the one she always wore when she wanted to feel confident. I look professional, she said. You look like you're going to negotiate a business deal. She smiled. Exactly. Even then, she was trying to make me laugh. The doctor looked through the results, then he became quiet, and somehow, that silence told me everything. He looked at us. I'm afraid the results are consistent with Alzheimer's disease. The room became still. A word, just one word, but it changed our entire future. My mother looked down for a few seconds. She said nothing, then she looked at the doctor. So, she took a breath. Does this mean I finally have an excuse for forgetting where I put my glasses? The doctor smiled. I laughed. She laughed for one moment. Everything felt normal. Then I saw her eyes. The joke was gone, and underneath it was fear, not fear for herself, fear for me. Outside the hospital, it started raining. We stood there silently, then my mother reached for my hand. I'm sorry, I looked at her. For what? She looked away. For making you become the strong one. My throat tightened. Mom, I mean it. She squeezed my hand. I spent my whole life protecting you. A pause. I never wanted you to have to protect me. That night, I stayed at her house at around 2 in the morning. I heard movement, a drawer opening, then closing. I walked toward her room. The door was slightly open. Inside, my mother was sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers, writing. When she saw me, she quickly covered them. What are you doing? She smiled. Nothing, I crossed my arms. You've never been good at lying. She laughed quietly. I know. She placed the papers into a folder, then she looked at me. Her expression changed. Like she was preparing for something she hoped would never happen. Emma, promise me something. I sat beside her. What? She held the folder tightly. If one day, she paused. If one day I don't remember you, my eyes filled. Mom, listen, her voice was calm. If I forget your name, don't spend every visit trying to force me back into the past. I shook my head. I'll remind you, I'll show you pictures. I'll tell you everything. She smiled sadly. No. Then she touched my face, just like she did when I was little. If I'm standing in the rain, you don't scream at the clouds. You just stand beside me. I didn't understand then, but I would, because years later. Those words would become the only thing that kept me from breaking. After the diagnosis, everyone told me to prepare myself. Doctors, friends, family, everyone used the same words. Things will get harder, but nobody explained what harder actually meant. They didn't tell me about the small moments, the moments that hurt more than the big ones. Like watching someone you love search for a word that used to come naturally. Like seeing them look at a photograph and ask who the people are. Like watching them apologize for something they never did. At first, Mom was still mostly herself. She still made jokes. She still argued with me about everything. Even about things that didn't matter. One morning, I found her putting groceries away. She had placed the cereal in the refrigerator. I stared at it. She stared at me. Then she said, well, at least it will stay fresh. I laughed so hard, she laughed too for a moment. I forgot about the diagnosis. I forgot about the future. I forgot that the woman standing in front of me was slowly slipping away. Those moments became precious. Because when you know something is temporary, even ordinary moments become priceless. But slowly, the disease started taking more. Mom began writing reminders everywhere. Little notes around the house, on the refrigerator, on the bathroom mirror, beside the front door. Some were normal, buy milk, call Emma, take medicine, but some were different. One note was stuck beside her bedroom mirror. It said, remember who you are. I stood there staring at it. Because I knew she wasn't reminding herself about her name. She was reminding herself about the woman she had always been. One evening, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. She closed it quickly when I walked in. Secret diary? I joked. She smiled. Something like that. What are you writing? She looked at the notebook, then back at me. Things I don't want to lose. I sat beside her. You won't lose them. She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. Emma, sometimes people don't disappear all at once. Sometimes they leave little pieces behind. I didn't know what to say, so I held her hand. A few months later, something strange happened. Something I didn't understand at the time. My Uncle David called me. He was my mother's older brother. He asked me to come over. When I arrived, he looked nervous. I had never seen him like that. Emma, Your mother was always stubborn, I smiled. That's one word for it. He didn't smile. Before her condition got worse, did she ever tell you she was worried about something? I frowned. Worried about what? He looked away. Nothing. The answer bothered me. Because people don't say nothing like that unless it is something. I asked Mom about it later. She was sitting by the window, watching the rain. Mom, yes. Did Uncle David say anything strange to you recently? Her expression changed. Only for a second, but I saw it. Fear. Then it disappeared. No, why? I don't know. She looked back outside, then quietly said, sometimes, people hide things because they think they are protecting you. I felt a strange feeling in my stomach. What does that mean? She smiled. Nothing. Again, that word, nothing. The next week I found something inside one of her old books, a photograph. It was a picture of Mom and me. I was about 8 years old. She was holding me. Both of us were laughing. On the back of the photo, she had written, if anyone tells you I stopped fighting, they are wrong. I froze. Because I didn't understand. Why would she write that? Who would tell me she stopped fighting? I started paying attention. Small things, things I had ignored before. The way certain family members avoided talking about Mom's condition. The way some questions were answered too quickly. The way everyone repeated the same sentence. Her disease became too much. Almost like they had practiced saying it. Then came the day Mom moved into the care home. That was the day she looked at me and asked, have we met before? The day I introduced myself. The day my heart broke. But even then, she still had moments, small moments. Moments where I saw the old her. One afternoon I was visiting her room. She was looking through a drawer. What are you searching for? She looked confused. I don't know. Then she pulled out a small envelope. She stared at it. Her fingers touched the handwriting. Suddenly, her face changed. Emma, I froze because she said my name, clearly. For the first time in weeks. Yes, she looked at the envelope, then at me. Don't let them tell you everything is an accident. My heart stopped. What? But just as quickly. The confusion returned. She looked away. I need to rest. Mom, but she didn't answer. I spent the next few days thinking about those words. Don't let them tell you everything is an accident. Was it the disease talking? Was it a confused memory? Or was my mother trying to tell me something? 3 months later, my mother passed away. Everyone told me the same thing. The Alzheimer's had progressed. Her body became weaker. Her mind faded. It was a tragedy caused by the disease. I believed them. I wanted to believe them because the alternative was impossible. The funeral was small, quiet, exactly how Mom would have wanted it. People shared stories, they laughed, they cried. Everyone talked about the woman she was, not the illness, not the ending. The woman, that night, I went back to her house. Everything felt frozen. Her cup was still on the kitchen counter. Her sweater was still hanging by the door. Her handwriting was everywhere. And then I saw it, the wooden box, the one she had always kept locked. Inside, there were letters, dozens of them, but there was one envelope I had never seen before. It had my name on it. And underneath, 4 words, words that changed everything. Emma, trust yourself. I opened it, and the first sentence made my hands start shaking. If you are reading this, then they have already told you how I died. I stopped breathing because my mother knew, she knew what they would say. The letter continued, but before you believe them, please find out what really happened. I read that sentence again and again. Please find out what really happened, for several minutes. I just stared at the paper, because my mind was fighting against itself. One part of me wanted to believe it was nothing, a misunderstanding, a confused thought from a woman battling Alzheimer's. But another part of me, the part that knew my mother better than anyone, knew something was wrong. My mother forgot birthdays, she forgot names, she forgot recipes. But she never wrote words without meaning, not once. I turned the page. The handwriting was shaky, not like the earlier letters. This one was written later, when the disease had already taken pieces of her, but somehow, the message was clear. Emma, if you are reading this, I am sorry. I am sorry that you have to search for answers when you should only be remembering happy things. That was never what I wanted for you. My eyes filled with tears. Because even now, even from beyond her final days, she was still trying to protect me. But there is something you deserve to know. The story you were told about my final days is incomplete. People will tell you my mind was gone. They will tell you I was confused. They will tell you I didn't understand what was happening. Please remember this. A person can lose memories and still know when something is wrong. I stopped reading. because those words changed everything. The first person I called was Uncle David. He answered after the third ring. Emma, my voice shook. I found Mom's letters. Silence, long silence. Then he said, "What did they say?" That question bothered me. Not "what letters?" Not "what are you talking about?" He already knew. "Why did you ask that?" Another silence. Then, "Emma, some things are better left buried." I felt anger rising. My mother is buried. That doesn't mean the truth should be. The next morning, I went through everything. Mom's notebooks, old documents, medical papers, photos, anything that could explain what happened. And then I found something strange, a medical report, not from the hospital, from a private clinic. 6 months before her death. I read the date, 6 months before everyone told me she was getting worse. The report mentioned something unusual, something I had never heard about, a fall, an injury. A complication, but nobody had ever told me about any fall. I called the care home. The nurse who answered recognized my name. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Before my mother passed away, did she ever have an accident?" The woman became quiet. "Who told you that?" My heart started beating faster. "Nurse, please." Another pause. Then she said, "Your mother was very afraid near the end." "Afraid of what?" "I don't know." She wouldn't always explain, but sometimes she would say. The nurse stopped. "What?" She lowered her voice. She would say, "Don't let them make Emma believe I was weak." I sat there holding the phone, because that was the one thing my mother cared about most. Not being remembered as someone who was sick, not being remembered as someone who forgot. She wanted me to remember who she really was. That evening, I visited Uncle David. He opened the door and immediately knew why I was there. "You found the letters." It wasn't a question. "Who was hiding something from me?" He looked away. "Emma." "No," my voice broke. I spent years thinking my mother was disappearing. I watched her forget me. I watched her become someone everyone pitied. And now I find out there was something else, he sighed. "Your mother didn't want you involved." "Why? Because she knew you?" He looked at me. "You would have destroyed yourself trying to fix it." I laughed bitterly. "She was my mother. Of course I would have." He finally sat down. Then he told me something I never expected. "Your mother knew something was wrong before the diagnosis." I froze. "What? Not the Alzheimer's? The family?" My heart sank, he explained. "Months before her condition became obvious, Mom discovered that someone close to her had been making decisions behind her back. Financial decisions, personal decisions. Things that affected her future. When she confronted them, they told everyone she was becoming confused, that her memory couldn't be trusted, that she was imagining things. But my mother wasn't imagining everything. Who was it?" Uncle David looked at me, and the answer hurt more than I expected, because it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone outside the family. It was someone who had sat beside me at the funeral. Someone who cried while talking about how much they loved my mother. Someone who knew exactly how to make everyone believe them. I whispered the name. "No." Uncle David looked down. "I'm sorry." I felt sick, because suddenly every memory changed. Every conversation, every smile, every comforting word. Everything looked different. That night, I opened the final pages of Mom's notebook. The last thing she had written before she couldn't write anymore. It wasn't about the person who hurt her. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about herself. It was about me. "Emma, if you ever discover the truth, please don't let it turn you into someone I wouldn't recognize. I spent my whole life teaching you kindness. Don't let someone else's actions steal." That from you, I put the notebook down. Because even when someone had hurt her, my mother was still thinking about protecting my heart. But there was one thing I still didn't understand. If she knew the truth, why didn't she tell me? Why did she let everyone believe Alzheimer's was the reason she was gone? Then I found the final recording. The one hidden beneath the letters. The one labeled, "For Emma." "When you are ready," I pressed play, static, a breath, then, my mother's voice, weak but clear. "Emma, if you are hearing this, then you found the truth." A pause. "I need you to listen carefully. Because there is something I never told you." My mother's voice came through the speakers. Weak, tired, but still hers, and somehow. That hurt more than silence. Because for months I had listened to everyone tell me that my mother was gone, that the disease had taken her, that the woman I knew had disappeared. But there she was. Still trying to protect me, still leaving something behind, still being my mother. "Emma, if you are hearing this, then you found the truth." I held my breath. A part of me wanted to stop the recording. Because knowing the truth meant accepting that someone had lied to me. Someone had taken my mother's final moments and changed the story. But I kept listening. I know you are angry. A small pause. I know you are hurt. Maybe you are even wondering why I didn't tell you everything. I looked down. Because that was exactly what I was thinking. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? Why did you let me believe you were just fading away? Her voice continued. Because I knew you. You would have fought. You would have blamed yourself. You would have tried to fix something that was never yours to fix. Tears filled my eyes because she was right. She knew me better than anyone. Emma, there are things in life we cannot control. People's choices, people's hearts, people's actions, but we can always control who we become because of them. I closed my eyes. Even now, she was teaching me, then she said something I wasn't prepared for. The person who hurt me, I don't want you to spend your life hating them. I felt anger rise inside me. How could she say that? How could she ask me not to hate someone who betrayed her? But then she continued, not because they deserve forgiveness. A pause. But because you deserve peace. The room became completely silent because that was my mother. She wasn't weak. She wasn't unaware. She wasn't confused. She understood exactly what was happening. She just refused to let pain turn her into someone she wasn't. I want you to know something. The Alzheimer's was real. The disease was real. But it wasn't the whole story. I was still me, even when I forgot words, even when I forgot names, even when people started speaking about me as if I wasn't in the room. I was still there. I covered my mouth. Because those words explained the thing I had struggled with the most. All those times I thought she was gone, she was still fighting to stay. I need you to understand something about memory. People think memory is where love lives, but they are wrong. Love lives deeper. It lives in habits, in kindness, in the way someone teaches you to treat the world. It lives in the person you become. Then came the part I had been waiting for. The truth, the name, the reason. My mother's voice became quieter. The person who made things harder for me was someone I trusted, someone I loved, someone I never thought would choose fear over family. I looked at the name written in Uncle David's notes. The same name that had been hiding behind sympathy. The same person who stood beside me at the funeral. The same person who told everyone my mother was simply lost to Alzheimer's. My mother's voice continued. They wanted control. They wanted people to believe I was incapable. And when I tried to speak, they used my illness against me. My hands tightened around the recorder. Because suddenly I understood. The cruelest part wasn't only what happened. It was that someone convinced everyone not to believe her. They didn't just hurt my mother, they stole her voice. But Emma, I don't want you to remember me as someone who was hurt. I want you to remember me as someone who loved. Remember the bicycle, the crooked birthday cakes, the lunchbox notes. Remember the mornings when we drank tea together. Remember me before the disease. Remember me before the pain. The recording became quiet. For a moment I thought it was over. Then she whispered, "And Emma, if you choose to find the truth, find it, but don't lose yourself while doing it." The recording stopped. I sat there for a long time, not crying, not angry, just still. Because for years I thought the biggest tragedy was that Alzheimer's stole my mother, but now I understood something else. The biggest tragedy was that someone tried to convince the world she wasn't worth listening to. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to search for revenge. I was going to search for the truth. There was a difference. Revenge destroys everything around it. Truth simply brings things into the light. I started collecting everything. The documents. The messages, the medical records, the things people thought I would never find, and slowly, the story began to come together. The missing pieces, the lies, the moments that never made sense. Everything my mother tried to leave behind, but there was one final thing I discovered, something hidden inside the wooden box, something I almost missed, a small envelope, no date, no title. Only 5 words written on the front. For when you forgive yourself. I opened it, and the first sentence made me cry, because it wasn't about the person who hurt her. It wasn't about the family secret. It wasn't even about the truth. It was about me. Emma, the hardest person you will ever have to forgive is yourself. I read that sentence 3 times. Because I expected my mother to write about the person who betrayed her. I expected anger, pain, a warning. I expected her final words to be about what someone else had done, but my mother, even at the end, was still thinking about me. The letter continued. I know you are searching for answers. I know you want to understand why this happened, but before you look at anyone else, I need you to look at yourself. I frowned. Because I didn't understand. What did I need to forgive myself for? I was the one who stayed. I was the one who visited. I was the one who held her hand when she couldn't remember my name. I was the one who watched her disappear, but then I saw the next line, and my heart stopped. The day you told me you needed me to remember something for once, I closed my eyes, that day. The one I had tried to forget, the one I carried like a wound. Emma, you have been punishing yourself for that moment for years, but I need you to hear this from me. You did not fail me. You were my daughter, not my nurse, not my protector, not someone who had to be strong every second. You were allowed to be tired. You were allowed to be scared. You were allowed to break. Tears rolled down my face. Because those were the words I needed, not from a doctor, not from a friend, from her. I never measured your love by your perfect moments. I measured it by the fact that you came back, every single time, even after the difficult days, even after the painful conversations. Even when you thought you weren't enough, you were always enough. I put the letter down. For years, I thought my biggest failure was that one phone call, that one moment when I lost patience. But my mother saw something I couldn't. She saw the thousands of moments before and after it. The cups of tea, the hospital visits, the late-night calls, the hands held, the promises kept. One bad moment had become bigger in my mind than an entire lifetime of love. The next day, I met Uncle David again. This time I had questions, real questions. What happened? He looked exhausted, like he had been carrying this secret almost as long as I had been carrying my guilt. Your mother discovered something about her finances. What kind of something? Someone had been moving money. My stomach tightened. Who? He didn't answer immediately. And that silence told me everything. The person was someone close, someone my mother trusted, someone who knew about her diagnosis, someone who realized that if people believed she was confused, nobody would question her. The Alzheimer's diagnosis became a weapon. Her words became easier to ignore. Her concerns became confusion. Her fears became symptoms. And the worst part, my mother knew exactly what was happening. Why didn't she tell me? Uncle David looked at me. Because she was afraid of what it would do to you. I shook my head. She should have trusted me. He gave me a sad smile. Emma, your mother trusted you more than anyone. That's why she stayed quiet. I didn't understand. How does that make sense? Because she knew you would sacrifice everything. That night, I returned to my mother's house, the house where every room still carried her. The kitchen where she made tea, the hallway where she took my first school picture, the chair where she sat and wrote those letters. I walked into the kitchen, and there it was, the old recipe book. I opened it. Inside were pages of handwritten recipes, but between two pages was another note, not an emotional letter, not a goodbye, a clue, a name, a date. And one sentence, the truth always leaves a trail. For the first time, I understood what my mother had done. She wasn't trying to destroy anyone. She wasn't trying to start a war. She was leaving me a path to the truth, but she was also leaving me a choice. I could expose everything. I could destroy the person who hurt her. I could make everyone see what happened, or I could let anger consume the rest of my life. And suddenly, I heard her voice again, not from the recording, not from a letter, from memory. Don't let someone else's actions steal who you are. The investigation took months. Slowly, the truth came out. Documents were uncovered. Stories changed. People who had stayed silent finally spoke. The person who hurt my mother had to face the consequences, not because I wanted revenge, because the truth deserved to exist. But the strangest thing happened, when everything was finally over. I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. I thought I would feel healed. I thought justice would bring my mother back somehow. It didn't, because no punishment could give me another morning with her. No answer could let me hear her laugh again. No truth could replace her hand holding mine. So I went back to the place where everything began, the care home, the window where she used to sit, the chair where I introduced myself. I sat there quietly, and for a moment, I imagined her beside me. I imagined her asking, "Have we met before?" And this time, I knew exactly what I would say. I would say, "Yes. Mom, we have met. Every day of my life, you were there when I learned to walk. You were there when my heart broke. You were there when I was afraid. You were there when I didn't believe in myself. You were there because you were home." I finally understood something. My mother didn't leave behind a story about what happened to her. She left behind a lesson about what happens after. Pain can change you. Loss can change you. Betrayal can change you. But you still get to decide what kind of person you become. Months later, I found myself sitting beside a little girl at a school playground. She was crying, holding her lunchbox. I recognized that look, the same look I had when I was 12. I sat beside her. "What's wrong?" She wiped her eyes. "Everyone laughed at my lunch." I smiled. Then I took out a small piece of paper and wrote, "In case nobody tells you today, I'm proud of you." She looked at the note, then smiled, and in that moment, I felt it, not sadness, not grief, something warmer. Something familiar, my mother, not as a memory, not as a photograph, but as a part of me. People say Alzheimer stole my mother. They are wrong. It stole her memories. It stole her words. It stole the time we should have had, but it never stole the most important thing, her love, because love doesn't live in memory. Memory fades, love stays. And every time I tell someone, "I'm proud of you," a small part of my mother introduces herself to the world again.